Let me ask you something. What's the single most important skill for professional success? It's not your degree, it's not how hard you work, it's how well you communicate. In fact, a huge number of workplace failures, a whopping 86%, are blamed on bad communication. So today, we're going to unpack what it really takes to get it right.
Here's the thing. We communicate all day, every day, right? Emails, texts, meetings, quick chats by the coffee machine. But there's this weird paradox. Just because we're always talking doesn't mean we're actually connecting. And that, my friends, is the communication conundrum.
You totally know this feeling, don't you? That sinking sensation when you send what you think is a perfectly clear email, only to have it completely misinterpreted. Or you make a brilliant point in a meeting, and it just falls flat. You were speaking English, they were speaking English, but it feels like you were on different planets.
But what if I told you there's a blueprint, a kind of secret code that once you understand it, can completely change the game for every professional chat, email, and presentation you ever have? Well, let's get into it.
Okay, we're going to break down the 6 core principles that are the absolute foundation of great communication. Think of this as your new toolkit for building better connections and getting your ideas heard, starting right now.
First things first, every single time we communicate, it's because we need something. Maybe you're trying to build a good vibe with a new teammate. That's a relational need. Or you're trying to sound confident in a big presentation. That's about your identity. Or you just need to share some critical data. That's informational. Or, you need your boss to approve your project. That's an instrumental need. See, there's always a reason.
All right, next up, communication has rules, and they're not always written down. You've got the explicit rules, like the official company handbook. Easy enough. But then you have the implicit rules, the unwritten, unspoken social code about how things really work. Do you slack your boss after 6 p.m.? Is it okay to crack jokes in the Monday morning meeting? Knowing both sets of rules is absolutely crucial.
This one's a biggie. We spend so much time crafting the perfect words for an email, but what about everything else? Your tone of voice, your posture, whether you're making eye contact? That's the nonverbal stuff, and honestly, it often screams way louder than your actual words. It can either back up what you're saying or totally undermine it.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. Every single message you send has 2 layers. The content is just the literal meaning of the words, but the relational dimension is what your message says about your relationship. Just think about the huge difference between a boss saying, "Get this done," versus, "Could you help me with this?" Same content, totally different relationship message.
We all do this without even thinking about it. Metacommunication is basically when we communicate about our communication. Anytime you say, "Wait, don't take this the wrong way," or "Let me be blunt for a second," you're giving the other person instructions on how to interpret what you're about to say. It's like a user guide for your own words.
And here's our final and maybe most important principle. Words don't have meaning. People have meaning. Words are just symbols we agree on. The word deadline might fill you with anxiety, but for your manager, it might just be a target. Real meaning, shared understanding, that's created in the space between people, not inside the dictionary.
So, we've got these 6 principles down, we're all set, right? Well, not so fast, because communication isn't like sending a package in the mail. It's not a one-way street. Just look at this model. It shows you how messy and dynamic this whole thing is. You, the sender, have a thought and you encode it into words. That message then travels through a channel, say an email. The receiver gets it and has to decode it. But wait, there's more. They're sending back feedback, maybe a confused look or a quick reply. And all of this is happening in a specific context and is getting scrambled by noise, which could be anything from a loud office to your own personal biases. It's a constant back and forth dance.
Okay, so we've got the theory down. Now let's bring it out of the textbook and into the real world, your actual workplace. How does all this play out in your day-to-day job?
Every single office has 2 networks running at the same time. The formal network, that's the org chart, the official chain of command. But the informal network, that's the grapevine. It's the friendships, the lunch buddies, the people you trust. And let me tell you, a truly skilled communicator knows how to navigate both of these networks effectively.
Within that official formal network, information flows in 3 directions. You've got downward communication, which is your boss giving you instructions. Then there's upward communication. That's you giving a status update or raising a red flag to your boss. And finally, there's lateral communication, which is all about collaborating with your peers. Each one needs a slightly different approach, a different tone.
So you get the principles, and you understand the networks, but how do you go from just getting by to being a genuine super communicator? Let's talk about the specific skills that will get you to that next level. It all, and I mean all, comes down to credibility. If people don't trust you, they simply won't listen to you. And how do you build that trust? Well, you develop real rapport with people. You don't just wait for your turn to talk. You actively listen. You act with integrity. And you always adapt your message to the person you're speaking with. When you look at the absolute best communicators, they all share these 6 traits. They're self-aware, they know how they're coming across. They're adaptable, so they can switch up their style on the fly. They're empathetic, so they can genuinely feel what others are feeling. They have cognitive complexity, which is a fancy way of saying they can see a situation from multiple angles. And they have high emotional intelligence, all wrapped up in a strong sense of ethics. These are the skills that really make you stand out.
Wow, we have covered a ton of ground, haven't we? We've gone from the fundamental building blocks of communication all the way to the high-level skills of the pros. So let's bring this all home.
Look, your path to becoming a communication master is actually pretty clear. It all starts with really understanding the process. Then, you learn to navigate your workplace networks, both formal and informal. From there, you focus on building rock-solid credibility. And finally, you work on mastering those core traits that define true competence.
So, after all of that, I'll leave you with this one question. What is the one thing you're going to focus on, starting today, to become a better communicator? Because seriously, that one small change could be the key that unlocks your entire professional future.